Helo pawb a croeso cynnes i chi. Good afternoon everybody and a warm welcome to this afternoon's meeting of the Strategic Change Transformation and Culture Committee. Can I start with agenda item number 1, and that is apologies for absence. Do we have any? Yeah,
Gyda Chief Fire Officer Monaghan, ACFO June Lauder, ACFO Kristen Hadfield and Kristen Landington.
thank you very much, Mia. Those will be noted. We'll go then to item 2, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest that need to be made prior to the conduct of the meeting? No, there are none. Thank you for that. Item 3, chairperson's announcements. I don't have any, so we'll move straight then to item number 4, which is to receive the minutes of the committee meeting that was held, which seems like a lifetime ago now, on the 14th of August. Shall I just go through quickly the page numbers? If anybody's got an issue with the accuracy, please can you shout? So that's page 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and 11, and the last 2 lines on page 12. If there are no points to be raised on the minutes, can I take that we are in agreement this is an accurate reflection of the discussions that took place that day? I don't see any objections, so those minutes are agreed. And then we'll move to item 5, which is the update on issues arising from previous committee meetings. So we have a number of items that are listed as completed. So that's 4.3 and 5.1. Then we get to 5.4, and that is the fatigue management paper. We have an update that has been provided in the final section. I guess what I'd be interested in understanding, and I guess Matt, this is for you, is what's the governance around this particular project? So it says that progress has been made, including further discussions with the service solicitor, and following discussions with the representative bodies, further progress will be made. I'm kind of trying to get an understanding of what the next steps are and what is the governance around that in terms of how this committee, or indeed if it's not this committee, a different committee, or the board in general, will be kept up to date.
The next step, Commissioner, would be around the rep bodies now have the paper around fatigue, where that breaks down into recommendation, the phased approach, which is really that measured approach across the organisation, so it doesn't impact things such as the on-call, etc. So we're waiting for feedback to come from them regarding that. And for us then, we would start to progress on phase 1, which was the monitoring tool, which has already been created. Along then, we're working with People Services to redesign the new contracts that would take into account anybody signing up, for example, to whole time retained. They would have to give the 11 hours rest within there then, and obviously starting to wean off with the other areas then. And again, in amongst there of the phase 1 was the alerting systems across our whole time stations, which we know there's probably about 2 that are still sitting on the old systems themselves, which are not progressive alerting. So that was it as part of that. But by the next meeting, should be able to give you a significantly more detailed update. I suppose my question really is, would that be better suited for you then in a almost like a thematic review style highlight report of where we are?
So I guess the question is kind of like, what would be a real expectation of how that project is reported through? Is it every committee meeting, or is actually that's too close together? So you'd want something further apart to allow some of the actions to actually fill and embed. Views, Carl, have you got a view about what would be appropriate levels of reporting into the committee on progress?
So I think it's fair to say, Matt, that you gave us a lot of reassurance, and we took reassurance from the phased approach, but we were concerned that if it went wrong, it could detrimentally impact on the service that we're offering the community of South Wales, haven't we? So I do think it probably needs to come to this. So, you know, either a report or a verbal update or something to the next committee does feel like the right way to go.
Are you happy with that? And in terms of the style of reporting, are we looking at just a regular kind of paper, or are we looking to kind of like?
I would advise against automatically going to at every meeting you have an
Yes,
update, because this feels like a standalone issue that you've got legal advice on, we're addressing.
Yeah.
So I think we decide at the next meeting when you get the update whether you need a further update after that or
Okay.
not.
Great, so the action then arising out of this is that we will have that paper at the next committee. Brilliant. And then 6.7, still on the subject of fatigue management and occupational health support. Forgive me, my slightly addled brain. I couldn't remember exactly what we were asking for here. So I note the fact that fatigue questions are now in the screening form. But is that what we were trying to get at with that point? Or because
So I'm not sure it was, but I think we could include that in the update just to kind of show where that screening questions have gone,
Yes.
if Alison's team are comfortable with that.
that's great then. So we can take that, that will be completed, and that issue will be rolled into that more general report for the next meeting. Are we absolutely clear about expectations and what's going to come? Yes, Matt, you happy with that?
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
Then we've got 6.7, broadening the, well, both 6.7s. I think here, I think these can probably be done as completed and taken off the action log, because they are actually in the reports, aren't they? We're having that report. So I think if with everybody's agreement, those two items are on the agenda. They're ongoing monitoring, so I think they can come off. Is everybody happy with that? Are you happy with
Yep,
that?
pretty happy.
So we'll take those off. Let's not have stuff on the action log. We don't need it to be there. And then the last one is due to happen, Dominic, on the 18th of December. So we'll leave it on there for now. And we're clear that there is a date for when that will be taken forward. Anything to add, Dominic?
Nothing to add from me.
I can't.
Dominic, and I probably should know the answer, and it may be going down the motorway, I've forgotten. We were having a conversation of whether there should be a commissioner at that board. Where did you land, or do we still need to have the discussion? I say we, because clearly if it's around IT, then it's Kirsty.
Yeah, so I think that's part of that decision-making process that we'll come on to. We wanted to make sure that the new deputy that it will sit under, and potentially the new head of DDAT are involved in those conversations.
Okay, so we'll wait for an update, yeah?
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, so we're waiting on the Dominic to advise on that. Okay. Any further questions on actions arising out of minutes or previous meetings? Everybody's happy? Cool. So we'll make progress on to the next section of the agenda: reports for information and insurance assurance. And we're going to start with the independent cultural review report recommendations. Dominic, please.
Yeah, thank you. So as normal, this report is an update on the independent cultural review recommendations. We cover these and update at Service Improvement Board every 6 weeks. And as you'll know, these recommendations and this position has gone through the commissioners previously, including a detailed report that we've shared at Service Improvement Board of next steps and actions to take. So the recommendations is that commissioners note the progress reported on the implementation of the recommendations and agree and note the additional evidence gathering required for sign off of the future of those additional recommendations. So the position on these recommendations hasn't changed very much since our last position. So there is a total of 82 recommendations that have now been reviewed and quality assured. That is an improvement since the last board. So we've now reviewed all of those and agreed the final positions for them. So 64 recommendations have been completed, signed off and quality assured. They have evidence recorded against them to demonstrate that. 4 of them, of course, are annual reviews, and these will be pending relevant milestones to ensure our progress. The report recommends that they're done a year out, but we've already made progress on some of them, including the 10K vaults, so they may be done quicker than the others. There are 6 recommendations that have independent and external factors, and we'd agreed a number of these some time ago, and those are things like progression of digital systems, so HR systems as an example, and legal input, and the HR policies that we'll come on to later are an example of that. And 7 further, we require to do additional work on them. This is based on staff feedback and the importance of the outcomes of progressing these. They primarily focus around our promotion process, so we've took a measured decision to put a significant amount of staff feedback into this process and to do it in a robust and consistent way. So some of those recommendations will be signed off when that review has been complete, and we've agreed with commissioners that that will be at the point that we have a promotions framework published and communicated, and we've got milestones for when our next promotion boards will be in progress. And of course, we're progressing the area manager process, which is overseen by the commissioners. As a point to note, one of those recommendations is essentially the change in governance. So we have that marked off by the commissioners, but of course it has independent impact on that, and there's a significant piece of work ongoing to progress that now that the monitoring officer is progressing at pace. The report details the breakdown of those recommendations in detail so that you can see them. It highlights the external factors that I've talked around, and it lists the progress that we need to make for those areas. But essentially that is our position on the recommendations. Those outstanding recommendations will continue to be monitored at our service improvement board. The last of those boards was last week. That is my summary of the report, and the commissioners are asked to note the progress and the specifics of the additional evidence gathering required.
Dominic, Marianne, any questions to the paper?
So firstly, one point, I just want to say thank you. I've said it before, and I'm sure echoed by Kirsty. You know, the amount of work that's got to this point, it fell disproportionately on some functions. So Alison, I'm looking at yours and others. So really, really grateful that we have got to where we are, and it's a positive place that we are. Question though, Dominic, the final 7, and I know I keep asking, have we now nailed the timeline for completion of those final 7? Because I certainly keep talking to Welsh Government of the end of this year. And I know some of that work involves both promotion and temporary promotion processes, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So the vast majority of those, or all of those, have gone through service improvement board, like I've mentioned, and have been shared out so that we now progress those work on them. There is a measured piece of work for the promotion piece that the portfolio management office is working very closely with the people services team that are leading that piece of work to agree those timelines. So I believe there's an update report and presentation being finalised at the moment that highlights the next steps and the dates for those promotion periods. So that should be available shortly.
Alison, can I come to you?
Yeah, of course. So we are meeting with the Chief Fire Officer next Wednesday to provide a project update to him on where we are. The plan is, obviously we're out for AMs at the moment, is to pull together a timeline that takes us forward, building on the framework that we've developed, which is there but hasn't been socialised more widely than HR at the moment. So there's a communications piece to be done on the framework, and then delving into the detailed aspects of the eligibility criteria, what the adverts look like, which the team are pulling together as we speak. So looking to go out with a new process early in the new year.
So am I, looking in everybody's eyes, comfortable in saying by we break for Christmas, we'll have those 7 done?
Dominic?
Dominic? Or am I going to have to throw you in front of the Welsh Government on the bad man told me something and I lied?
No, so I think if we take the document that you are asking for and the specifics, that we can achieve them in that timeline. So the promotion process is the next set, may not have started till next year, but we will have the dates for you for those.
Alison, are you comfortable? Bear in mind your resource issues.
So there are. So I'm just looking at the list of 7 that require additional work. So there's, for example, pause use of temporary promotion for any period in excess of 6 months. Our business need is to keep people on temporary promotion to manage our service delivery. So whilst we are reviewing our temporary promotions, we would not have necessarily paused those. So there's one that I would say we wouldn't be able to resolve.
So I think where there is mitigating circumstances.
Yeah.
Just like we have talked in terms of fatigue management, just like we've talked into role of firefighter thematics, you know, there are operational reasons why you would perhaps want to, you know, have a slightly different timeline as to not to jeopardize or risk key operationals. I think what we need from the Welsh Government is to be able to have a very clear reason as to why something happened and what the timescales are for addressing. So I think
Chair,
that's
would it be fair then, therefore, to, for example, on that particular one, to say we would never achieve that as a fire and rescue service because of the ebb and flow of sickness, of people on courses, just running an organisation. I'm talking about the operational side of the business.
So I don't want to
You're
make
setting
policy on,
us up for a failure.
yeah, I don't want to make policy on the hoof, but I think it is. But I think what we'd be expecting of the Commission, I think this was feedback that we gave actually, is we want to just know the process,
Yeah,
that,
sure.
that it's clear, it's fair, it's transparent, and we're going through those review
Definitely.
mechanisms. 6 months is really difficult. It's pretty arbitrary, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, but as we know before, people were left in for 2 years. And there wasn't that kind of career development, progression, etc. So that's the bit. So absolutely, Brian. I think we would agree, Kirsty, that that's perfectly okay. It's right. What's the checks and balances?
Good call, yeah.
Dominic, please.
Yeah, so I was just going to reiterate that point that the Commissioner's just mentioned. So I think we have agreed that the terms of what we are saying will be acceptable as part of that document, and that what Carla said is my interpretation of it.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's good. That's good that we're all aligned into the expectations. Are there any further questions on this item, please? Any other comments or questions? No, I don't see. Thank you very much for that. So we now move on to the next paper, number 7, and that's the highlight reports from the transformation programme. Dominic.
Yes, thank you. So this report is an update on the wider transformation programme and improvements. The recommendation is that commissioners note the progress and the updates across the transformation programme and take assurance that work is progressing, and the commissioners continue to support the implementation of programme priorities and specific enablers, including digital transformation and communication and engagement as mechanisms for this. It highlights a number of top-level improvement processes. We have done an internal update following our service improvement board, so there has been some progress in key areas, significantly our communication and engagement area, but I won't go into that in too much detail because we've got a further update on that later on in the report. Progress has been made on digital transformation under our new temporary head of DDAT in some key areas. We're doing some scoping work to progress our SharePoint development, which underpins a lot of the work that we're doing, and we're doing further analysis around our CFMIS programme, and there's additional layers of governance put in place in that key area. We've released an online training package for our core code of ethics and our values that will give assurance that every member of staff has completed that and understands them. Of note, we have had our staff survey return, and 100% of those people that completed that, and there was around 30% of the organisation, I believe, that did so, felt that they had recognised and reviewed the core code of ethics and the values. So there was some positive feedback in and around that area. Our Spirit of Fire project continues, and work is building in terms of our 30-year anniversary event. We've had a number of positive feedback and positive events around our reward and recognition, including some new retirement events and some spotlight events that have gone down well within service. We're making progress in and around that area. Our independent advisory group has met for the first time, and we've got a further meeting scheduled, or their first meeting scheduled. I don't know the exact date of that, but I believe that is
Dominic.
in very short notice. I did think it may have been tonight. There's made significant progress on the SOPs and the HR policies that we've talked about. The document contains an update of which ones have been published and completed, and which ones have returned from the solicitors. So there is some positive and significant progress, I would suggest, in that area. Our Taking Care of Behaviours training plan continues across the service, and we've added some additional resource into that to support the delivery of it. And as we've already spoke about, our promotions review has progressed. So those are the highlights on the transformation programme. They're broken down in the report in further detail. I welcome any questions and the recommendations of the commissioners. Note the progress and support the continued improvement of the enablers.
Thank you, Dominic. Questions to Dominic on this paper, or comments or observations, Carl?
I know, mate, every time we come to these meetings, I kind of voice my concerns around digital, because it pretty much underpins the whole function of the service, and we know we're not in a great starting place. But what I did think was really positive today is that we signed off 3 digital programmes through the Extraordinary Finance Committee. Yeah. So it's good to see some of that coming into the service, which I think is really, really positive. But when Alacrity eventually reports what that looks like, Jake, I know you're heavily involved, as is Paul. I think that will be critical for us, because the financial and a capacity delivery. And just as a positive note for today, I met with the Hydra team from the university, who just want me to update you on progress. Dominic, you've been heavily involved. They couldn't speak more highly of our staff that have been involved in the development of that progress. Joe, the first initial Hydra for fire will run as a test in January, with a view then it'll be available hopefully to all fire services in UK. So really positive.
Rhiannon.
To support the work that Dom talked about there, and not to go into the comms update now, as part of the look back on 2025, we've got a detailed briefing checklist on the recommendations, everyone listed with where we are with each one, and we've got a deep dive, detailed note around the transformation updates, the recommendations, and the thematic reviews as well. And that's going to be shared as part of a wider campaign in a week or 2 time.
Thank you, Rhiannon. That's good to hear. Might just be a bit picky. Is that all right? I just wonder whether going forward, Dominic, I think there are some elements of the report where some specific, I can't say the word, being very specific would be really, really helpful. So if I can give you some examples of where I think we would be able to get a higher level of assurance. So paragraph 2.4.2. It talks about DICE training continues and plans are in place to reach targets by the end of December 25. It would be really good to kind of restate the target, the expectation, so everybody is very, very clear about what we're working towards. And then again, something similar on paragraph 2.9, safe and positive environment. So it says, taking care of behaviour training is still in progress, a sizable proportion of the workforce. Well, what's sizable to you might not be sizable to me, which might be different to how Brian might interpret sizable. So I think it would be really, really helpful in reports, if we can have some, specific information. 2.9.4, progress continues in relation to Reg 28, preventing suicide strategy. I'm not quite sure that really tells me anything concrete that I can get some assurance of. So I'm just wondering, I think it's a note for future where we can, if we can really try and identify, measurable, points within the paper. So on that, what is the progress that is continuing with the preventing suicide strategy? You can tell me.
So people services are working on the regulations and working through our OC Health provision to look at practical steps. So what do we need to do as an organisation to support our people, put in place training, development, awareness, all of that package of stuff So yes, we've picked this up and we'll be working with ops colleagues to that, because I think this came out of a coroner's report around organisations needing to be aware of this and to work towards providing support to their people.
Yeah.
So it's at the moment, it's a fact finding, a pulling together, what do we need to do in terms of our response.
Sure. I think, given what we know about the prevalence of suicide rates in the Welsh population, given what we know about the makeup of our workforce being predominantly male, what we know about suicide rates in adult males as a leading cause of death. So I think, it's really important that as an organisation, we are, delivering on this particular area. And then it says a sizable proportion of the workforce has completed the taking care of behaviours training. And the aim is for the workforce, everybody in the workforce to have done that by the end of the year. Well, we are, a week away from December, so we've got very little time till the end of the year. Where are we?
So we've completed 704 people.
Yeah.
People have been trained.
Yes.
We're working with ops colleagues who are bolstering our training plan.
Mm-hmm.
The plan is still to try and get this over the line by the end of the year.
Okay. Very good. Any other further questions? Okay, sorry, we've given those tyres a bit of a kick in, but thank you for that. We'll move on then to paper number 8, and that's the progress update on the thematic review of operational training. Neat.
Thank you, Chair. So as part of the previous update, I was asked to provide an additional paper, provide some assurance for commissioners in terms of concerns around the completion deadlines for some of the recommendations. Recommendation 1 is still on track to be completed by the end of the year, so that still has a green rank status. I outlined in my additional paper some challenges that we have been facing. A key member of the team has been absent from the workplace for 12 weeks, so we've had to draft somebody else in that is fully engaged in Skills for Justice apprenticeship and development of competence monitoring. So that individual is currently working for this particular recommendation 2 to 3 days per week. However, I had an extensive meeting with the team and they still give me some assurance that the recommendation will be complete and ready to be launched the first week of January. So it will be completed by the end of this calendar year and ready to be launched in the first week of January 26. We do anticipate that it'll need some tweaking along the way, but we anticipated that right from the very start anyway. But we are still on track to complete recommendation 1. In terms of recommendation 1 and 3, they are, as I've highlighted in my report, inextricably linked. But I think it's only logical to state that they can be the completion quantity or status can be mirrored for the two. We're currently sitting at 65% for both of them. So I've adjusted recommendation 3 to fall in line with recommendation 1. Recommendation 2A and 2B, RAG status green, complete. In terms of that recommendation, commissioners will now be aware that the final papers for sign-off for commissioners are on monday.com, along with the additional information, so the supporting evidence to back up the completion of 2A and 2B, along with 5 and 6. So all 100% complete, and the additional supporting evidence is referenced on monday.com, but it's hosted on SharePoint. But commissioners happy to go through that with commissioners whenever you feel.
All I can say, Neil, is with my previous experience of trying to use SharePoint, it never worked.
No. So the links.
That's our aim.
Yeah. So the pathway link for the evidence should work fine. Mike and I have worked on them and double checked them. I've sat down with Anne-Marie yesterday just to go through them, but happy to spend some time with commissioners and talk you through them.
So I think that's a really good idea, Neil, to get some time in the diary to actually go through those. I think where we've done that in the past, that's been really helpful. It's been really, really, really helpful. So if we can do that, that's an action arising out of that to get that in the diary. And obviously that needs to be done as quickly as you can.
I would prefer that as well, if I can talk you through it.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be really, really, really helpful. So that's that. That's any questions?
That's 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah. Sorry.
Recommendation 4. Again, in the additional paper, commissioners will be aware of some of the issues and concerns that we've had in terms of meeting that completion deadline. I had a really good meeting with the chief fire advisor last week, Dan Stevens, in terms of the terminology around recommendation 4, because as commissioners will note in my additional paper, there were concerns from me and my team that this particular recommendation will be an enduring recommendation and will, as such, never be complete because it's a suite of library micro teachers that will constantly need updating. So I met with Dan last week via Teams and had a really good meeting, really productive. And Dan is really, really happy with the progress we've made in terms of recommendation for the micro teachers. But there was also some confusion between my team and the wording of the recommendation, because some of the terminology in the recommendation refers to actual training manuals that we understand to be obsolete. However, the Fire Commissioner doesn't, even though the manual hasn't been updated since 2004. And we understand it's been superseded by National Operation Guidance. So we had some really good dialogue around that terminology. And Dan was happy for me to say that he's had some dialogue with yourselves and the CADSEC about using our micro teachers for the NFCC. So we've got a meeting with him on the 9th of December now to firm that up a bit more. But in terms of the recommendation completions, currently sitting at 80%. We've identified 153, a suite of 153 or library of 153 to complete. We're currently up around 90 with 20 currently going through editing. And as commissioners will also note from my report, these micro teachings often involve multi-day filming at remote locations. And then there's significant editing when they return back to the centre as well. So it's a really, really big piece of work. However, we are still committed to the 31st of December deadline. The RAG status for this particular recommendation has now changed to amber because there is a risk, now that we understand the terminology in the fire advisor's recommendation, that it is such a big piece of work that it may slip over. However, with the dialogue and the conversations I've had with Dan around that, he seems to be satisfied that we are making significant progress and we will be using our suite of library to influence NFCC teachings. Recommendation 5 and 6, 100% complete. And again, I refer to our earlier discussion about meeting with you and going through that to talk you through the SharePoint. In terms of some other challenges, I just want to highlight for recommendation 4 as well. I've got a team of 4 in training support unit, and they have had some significant competing demands. Everything is currently at P1 for the organisation in terms of the transformation project, contaminants, DICE videos. Business as usual. There's 4 individuals servicing the whole of the service. The thematics, Grenfell thematics, operational effectiveness. So they are under significant pressure to complete all these conflicting demands, along with a suite of 153 micro teachers as well. So I just
support Neil there. The training support unit is primarily set up to support training.
Yeah.
Hence the name training support unit.
Yeah.
So we've just been agile in supporting the rest of the service. But primarily on the normal steady state circumstances, that is their work is just
Training support. Absolutely. And commissioners will, thank you for authorising the additional fixed term contract for a multimedia developer to come in and support the team of 3, now 4.
Yeah.
But that individual, there was a delay of 5 months in recruiting that individual. So, there was a significant delay, and that probably did set us back as well, which I have documented right the way through my highlight reports. So just again, level of assurance, and that is all documented in the additional paper for commissioners to view.
Thanks, Neil.
So I think the report's really helpful. I think we were at 25% because while we had a slight moment of, oh my goodness, we've got 3 weeks to go, we're at 25. So the fact that we've seen that is Neil, really helpful. The additional report very helpful. Couple of bits for me then. I think, for individual training support, I think there is something about recognising them that the service needs to think about there.
We've already done that.
I thought so. I'm sure we've got
We've got something coming up in Spark now.
You mentioned the fire advisor
Yes.
having a view.
Yeah.
Is his view right? Because doing extra work.
Yeah.
Because a fire advisor says we've got to do it this way, and we don't believe it right, cannot be right. And that's not for me to decide.
Yeah.
That's for you and the chief and others.
Yeah.
But we do need to do the right things for the right reasons, for the right value. And if we're doing stuff just to tick a box, I would kind of happily support a view that we might shouldn't be doing that.
Is this in terms of the micro teachers, Carl?
Yeah.
There's no getting away from the fact they are a very, very good resource. and a personalised resource as well for the service, the way that firefighters learn.
Sorry, Neil, my thought is that if we're doing micro teachers
Yeah.
for data and training that is 20 odd years out of date.
Yeah. So it's probably worth me clarifying that. So the foundation of training, volume 2 manual, the 2004 document that haven't been updated since 2004, only refers to core skills training. So your pitching ladders, pumping, running out hose. So what the fire advisor is referring to, that we should develop micro teachers for everything that isn't in that manual. Now for us to understand that is a huge piece of work. That's why our library has now gone to 153 micro teachers, because it's everything else outside of that foundation of training manual. So yeah, that's what the recommend. So now we understand the recommendation a bit better. It just makes the project a little bit bigger.
So that I think for me that raises a number of questions. It's kind of, so we're almost 2 years in and now we have an understanding of the true scope of the project.
Yeah.
So we've been labouring under misapprehension for a little while maybe, and then we've got a different view.
Yeah.
So anyway, there's no point thinking about that now. That's where we are. So that comes down to, doesn't it, the issue that you rightly have raised about a team of people that are potentially being dragged in all sorts of different directions. So I guess the challenge back to the senior leaders in the organisation is, where's the prioritisation piece in that? Because, you know, it sounds to me as if what we're asking isn't particularly realistic. So is there a prioritisation piece that we need to be very frank with about what we can do and what we can't do? What's most important, what's going to have to be put on one side, and we'll get to it, but we'll get to it later. And then that speaks then to item to recommendation 5 here. You're not moving the timeline. You're still saying to us, it's December, I'm going to deliver by December. You know, that might not be the right decision. The right decision would be to move the timeline.
Yeah.
I mean, there are reasons why we would move the timeline.
Yeah.
So I don't think we should stick to a timeline just because all until this point we've said that's the timeline. If there are mitigating factors, if we have to look at realistically, there are other things in the organisation that will have to take priority. So I think for me, it's to challenge you back about what's the prioritisation piece for a small team who's clearly being asked to do a lot. And are you telling us December because that's what you've always told us and feel obliged to carry on telling us? Or actually, and what you're saying is, I need to move that timeline. And the reason I need to move the timeline is A, B, and C.
I would say we need to move the timeline.
Right, that's not on the paper.
Yeah.
So I think that's the challenge back. If we need to move the timeline, put it in the paper, and then we can all be clear. Because I think what we don't want to do is set us up to fail, isn't it? Set us up to fail and us to give false assurance for Welsh Government. So if I think that's back to you guys to have that conversation, the senior leaders.
It would certainly ease the pressure on my team. We've committed to that timeline, and they are working extremely hard. What I would point out is that because the micro teachers are such a good learning resource, we've been developing a micro teach suite of all of them right from the very start. So we've always had that mindset. We go for all of them.
Sure.
Obviously the discussions I've had with the fire advisor is like I think it's safe to say my report and Mike's report have been focused around tactical firefighting or compartment fire behaviour training. So we've always had them like micro teachers at the forefront. They've been the priority, and we will complete them, and some of the other stuff will fall in behind that. But we've been working to that sort of plan right from the very start. But we have had some significant challenges that I've outlined for a small team that have probably set us back as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess the challenge back is do the prioritisation.
Yeah.
Be very clear about what is most important, and then if the timeline needs to change, I mean, obviously outside of this meeting now, because we won't have time, then short kind of note deck to the commissioners to say, we've looked at the prioritisation, actually, looking at it now, we think it's going to be end of Q1 that we'll get to this, then that paper needs to come out.
So we've completed 90 and we've got 20, we've got 20 in edit.
Yeah,
So
so it's a huge achievement. I mean, it's not to decry the effort that's been going on. We are in danger of doing that.
And I know you were planned to come down, but we had the sickness, but I extended the invite to Dan as well.
Yeah.
And hence the reason why we are meeting him in Welshpool on the 9th of December. But I think his plan is, like I said, to use our microSuite library for the NFCC training manuals. So.
No, and it's very, very positive.
The other point, you're absolutely right, Neil, is that it will never end. Because things will change.
Yeah.
Because if it
It
doesn't,
is.
then we've still step, aren't we?
probably-
So that needs to go and link it in the transformation programme of normal business going forward,
Yeah.
Brian, and the team and what we're doing, doesn't it?
Which leads me on to my next point.
Paper recommendation for me, you can package that recommendation up in a series of achievable blocks, like we did with Mike's micro teachers. You're not going to get them all over the line. But what you can say is we've done the risk critical ones in line with new procedures and new tactics, because that's brand new. That's the stuff we need to educate our staff on. The stuff they're already familiar with, we're just putting into a screen for them to watch. That's the ones that can be packaged up, and that is a BAU.
Yeah.
That is just an enduring thing. In fact, we'll be the first fire and rescue service in UTA that have done that for pretty much all our SOPs. That's a piece of work you can map out over the next 2 years, for example. But in terms of the new improved tactics,
And that's what we've
achieved all.
That's what we've
They've
focused.
all been achieved.
That's right, yeah. Certainly achieved or in program to be achieved. But what we need to be cognizant of as senior leadership team is we get to a place of completion. We can't just let them,
No.
we need to support the team to maintain it. So the fixed term contract we've got, we need to think about a long-term position for that individual to
So
stay.
it's like the fourth road break, isn't it? We're gonna get to the end and then we're gonna have to go to the beginning, back to the beginning and start all over again. So I guess the question then, Neil, is to think about not only the prioritisation and the timeline for the recommendation, but actually when does this turn into just this is how we do business now? Rather than this is something that we need to report on, this is core business, this is how we run our operations.
Absolutely.
So I think that's the challenge, is how do we transition out of we're doing the thematics into this is what we do.
And that could very well be the end of this year.
Cool, brilliant. That'd be great. Any further questions?
Yeah.
Any further questions?
We have.
Thank you very much, Neil. Thank you for the extra paper. I think that really helped.
Okay.
That was really, really helpful to the discussions. Move on to number 9 then, thematic review, Grenfell updates.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Chair. So the report is provided an update or assurance against where we are against all the Grenfell recommendations. So we're working against 3 recommendations. So the phase 1, phase 2, and learning from Grenfell, Wales. Since March 2025, we have made good progress, as you're well aware, particularly with the formation of the high-rise team. There are 71 recommendations in total across all work streams. If you look at the front of the report, RAG status, 6 of those are in green and 2 in amber. Key progress since last review. Just to note, all the recommendations are now on Monday, which makes it easier to provide a visual assurance, which is really good and really positive for the team. 31 recommendations are awaiting final quality assurance. 4 recommendations, we're currently waiting on other departments to provide some evidence so we can sign those off. And there are 35 other recommendations which are in progress, approximately 40% complete. Doesn't quite tally up the 71 and the 70 because 1 recommendation is already agreed as non-compliant, which is the formation of an all Wales NOG transition team. So broken down policy and SOP development made excellent progress. So the high-rise SOP has been rewritten and is currently out for consultation, due back November 2025, so it's due in now. The evacuation SOP is exactly the same, complete and in review, and is now due back. New emergency evacuation procedures have been fully adopted by all 3 Welsh Fire and Rescue Services. So again, they've adopted our procedures, which is brilliant for the team. Becoming the Wales first all Wales operational high-rise policy. Training and capability, all phase 1 and 2 training for both on-call and whole-time staff has been completed. Incident Command CPD is underway between October and April 2026. Partnership and legislation engagements. As you're aware, we are engaging Welsh Government continually, particularly around the Building Safety Bill regarding PEEPs and person-centred frameworks. The high-rise team themselves are now on NFCC fires in tall buildings, PEEPs and secure information working groups. Community and operational development, new operational tactical plans have been drafted to future-proof Building Safety Wales Bill, buildings in scope. Issues and challenges. One of the main issues which we could foresee is we used to use Brecknock House, UHW. That is now scheduled for demolition. So we are looking for another alternative facility, which again, we almost need to have our eye into the future. What are we going to use going forward? You almost need a building. It's really difficult to keep borrowing a building from local authorities, etc. So we almost need to plan for the future and what that future looks like. And it may be that we need to look for a permanent facility, particularly with the onus, high rise isn't going away. We need to start future proofing that. So that is my biggest concern at the moment. Technology, we understand, especially with the communication needs between the fireground and control, we need mounted tablets. So you need tablets which you can demount and take into a building. So there is work ongoing with the ICT to deliver this by April 2026, but it'll have a multitude of uses, particularly for operations, SSRIs, etc. So it's a really good one. Legislative barriers, 18 recommendations cannot achieve full compliance until Building Safety Wales Bill comes in July 2027. Easy for me to say there. So we currently maintain partial compliance using internal safeguards, but we are predicting what those are going to be with the safety bill. Next quarter priorities, finalising compliance process with the commissioners, completing the sign off for the SOP 6.7, delivery of Incident Command CPD December 2025, completion of phase 2 training for on-call duty system December 2025, launch a new high-rise intranet site January 2026, launch a new community safety campaign January 2026, test an all Wales PEEP and operational incidents with local authority partners April 2026, and service-wide micro-teach rollout. Neil has mentioned the micro-teach importance, April 2026. That is my update if you have any questions.
Thank you very much, Mike. I didn't know that Mike was going to mention a Brecknock House, so I should declare an interest that I am chair of Cardiff Vale University Health Board that owns Brecknock House. So
Thank you.
I didn't know.
Thank you.
I didn't know we were going there, but Mike is correct. It is due to demolition, but I understand there is a possibility in the short term, at least, that you can move to the next tower block across the way from Brecknock House. But you're right. Eventually, hopefully, that will be demolished also. So that looking for that longer term solution, because who knows? Eventually, we might have the resources to redevelop UHW. But that is another job.
Just on that point, really, I'll ask a question because with any conflict is that obviously we're borrowing accommodation at the moment, which is not unusual, is it really? Do we actively now say we need to find a longer term solution? Because we know with any estate issues, isn't it? It's not quick. If we're going to build something, it's going to be expensive and it's not quick. If we're going to utilise something, it's not going to be quick. So I wonder if this out of this board, we should be committing supporting you, Mike, in the we're going to find a solution and put that on.
Definitely need probably transitions to Neil then from a training perspective.
So there's little things going on, like for example, we're trying to replicate some of the stuff you'll see in a tall building.
Yeah.
So cladding, there's going to be a new cladding facility going into Cardiff Gate, ground floor, obviously, so you can talk people through the issues with cladding. And there's a lot you can do, talk people through a firefighter lobby, how to, taking for firefighters lift, et cetera, but there's no getting away from the benefits of having that facility that we had access to in terms of here's the logistics and the challenges you now face when you've got disconnect between the commander, let's say the instant ground and 10th floor of a tall building. So that's a gap that we need to be thinking, what, and it's probably a medium term. What are we going to do over the next 5 years? Some fire services, I think Northern Ireland have got a dedicated high-rise facility. Greater Manchester. So we need to be thinking on those lines, Carl, 100%.
And there is a potential opportunity, I imagine, when you look at our estate in South Wales, you look at similar issues in Bristol with high rise there, that actually rather than, we potentially could do something jointly, even if it's cross border that way rather than mid.
It's probably the most logical financial, logically financial way of doing business, isn't it? Collaborating with another of our neighbouring fire services to have a central location. I know Mike's already, and Jason, this high-rise team have got so many connections now, not just nationally, but internationally, that, they're already having those conversations.
But I suppose the question is, Chair, could we be formally requesting that with the state strategy or short, medium and long term?
So I think we should, action arising out of this discussion is to formally ask the estates team to look at that proposal and to do some preparatory work on what that would look like. I don't imagine that we'll be losing Bracklock House's neighbour very soon, so I think we're okay, probably in the short term.
Right.
I think it's happening very soon. But I think, so if we could just take an action for Mike to liaise with the estates people to think about scoping that. Any further questions on Mike's paper? Sorry.
It's okay. It's a point of clarity, that's okay, Chair. I think it'd be useful for an action to be taken away from this, for particularly for those the first connection with thematics, is that it was we give the commitment 31st of December. I went on record to give that commitment, and we're 99% of the way there. This report, some of the dates were like April, June next year, because this is far bigger than the Learning from Grenville Chief Fire and Rescue Advisor report. Yes. So I think what would be useful for us and for commissioners in particular is just for Mike to put together, like Neil did, a small report to say the Learning from Grenville's been completed. That's all done, but this wider work is all the phase 1 and phase 2 Grenville stuff, and the significant progress has been made against all those sections.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it's really helpful to make to make the distinction, isn't there? So there is the thematics, but this is more than just the Chief Fire Advisor's review, isn't it? This is morphed into a much piece of work. And as Mike said, I think some of the challenges around that wider piece of work is legislation dependent. So we don't even know if the bill will be passed yet. The bill is still going through its parliamentary processes in the Senate. So, we can't, some of this can't be done until that legislative process is complete and the regs and such like done. So I think it would be helpful just to separate them out so that we can provide assurance to Welsh Government on the completion of the thematic report, but also show the considerable progress. And I am due to meet with the team tomorrow to test the evidence. So hopefully that's due to tomorrow. Thank you very much, Mike. If there's no further questions, then we'll move on to item number 10, thematic review, operational excellence update. Yeah, the mic. So as you can see from your name, Kate Michael.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, this is just an update on the progress made against the recommendation for the operational effectiveness following Dan Stevens' inspection report of the service. Recommendations 2 and 3 we're aware of cover the operational changes have been implemented in the recommendations in a phase where they've been signed off by myself, they've been signed off by the recommendation owner, which is Brian, and they're just ready for Commissioner scrutiny. To make sure that this is easier to view, I've again established the Monday framework, and all the information is on there for those recommendations with the final sign-off sheet. The report then focuses on my main area of focus has now shifted into recommendations 4, 5 and 6, which look at the operational assurance piece around its report. I gave an update to the commissioners just on an overview of progress, and to make sure you've got clarity of view on Monday. I've uploaded those recommendations and broke down the key milestones we need to hit to get these implemented. Recommendation 5 of this report covers the merger of 2 teams. We're looking at different areas of service assurance, one being station-based and the other one being operation incident-based. Just to feedback to you that team is now in place. The team was established from last Monday. So recommendation 5 is now in the process of producing the paperwork with background evidence of how we've gone through this process to put the team in place. So recommendation 5 is in a position or will be signed off shortly, again then to be scrutinised by the commissioners. So recommendations 4 and 6. Recommendations 4 is how we're going to implement the operational assurance and what effect it's going to have. And I've put in a 8-week program of events to take from team development to the rollout and a trial period of the new operational assurance process. On Monday, this is broken down into 13 key milestones, but I've also put a roadmap of over the next 8 weeks. Stage 1 was last week, which was completed, the establishment of the team, setting up the framework and distributing the tasks that need to be completed over the next 8 weeks to make sure that we've got this implemented. Stage 2, which we're currently in, is weeks 2 and 3, and we're looking at a digital infrastructure and our policy development. The policy is in the second stage. Even though we've classed it as a policy for the trial that we're running, it's the guidance operation of how we're going to introduce the operational assurance. That draft is in place. We're going a further consultation, so it will be ready and live to go with the start of the trial when that takes place in the 3rd week of January. Then we've got stage 3, which is weeks 4 and 5, and this is the training and capability development. So part of the phase we're at the moment, as well as getting the digital infrastructure, the pro formas that will be completed for ops assurance that give us those reports. We're also producing the training that's required for a tactical officers that will be undertaking our ops assurance. The training looks at 3 key areas: training up our tactical officers for ops assurance, then training up our control room staff so they've got a full understanding of the changes that are coming in place, and then the final phase, which will be online seminars for wider for all operational crews, so they've got an understanding of the changes that they will see at the coal face. Again, progress is tight, it's ambitious, what we're trying to do, but we're monitoring it. We've got the team in place, we're working through this, we've got a timeline to work towards, and I'm hoping that 8-week period starting from last week will be finished by the 16th of January, and we go live with our operational assurance trial on the 19th of January. Once we hit that point, all the stuff that was outlined, all the recommendations that were outlined in the report would have been met. And that's what we're aiming to do. So it was the 31st of January that we were going. There was a delay around personnel and the formation of the team before we could start this sequence of events that allow us to go live. So that's the position we're in at the moment. I'm happy to take any questions on what we're doing.
Thanks, Mike. Really appreciate it. Any questions or comments?
I suppose, Mike, we had an hour with you, didn't we? And it was really helpful to kind of get that reassurance and overview of where we're going. I think we said at the time, it feels like a tight timeline. It still feels like a tight timeline, but you know, we'll keep doing it. I think we've got to do it. It's about doing the right, getting it right, and landing it in the right way. And if that means we're a couple of 3 weeks over, then so be it. If we get it right and landed right and delivering, isn't it? But we still aim for 16.
We're not introducing totally new sort of structures. All we're doing is changing some different, so the groundwork's already there. And it's just evolving these, and then it's introducing those new individuals that are going to be taking this on to provide them with a structure. TAC officers go out to date and they naturally opt ashore an incident. All I'm doing is providing the structure in the background to make sure that 2 TAC officers take the same approach.
Yeah.
And these structures will also provide a guidance for how we're going through that incident. So as you are looking at things, if things are missing, you're bringing them up and developing those individuals, your ops assuring. Ultimately, that's what we're trying to achieve, not reinventing the wheel. So.
Thanks, Mike. Right?
Just to reinforce what Commissioner Carl said, it's the due diligence bit now, because we could say we've achieved it, we've merged the teams, but it's bigger than that. It's just what operational and operational experience. And to be fair to Mike, he just went over it quickly. You know, I think he still will achieve the start of our time because the way he's planned it all out, but also the mitigation really for the slight delay was about keeping pumps on the run. We couldn't really staff to come in to those roles. So that was it. And we had what, 4 to 8 week delay? Was it?
Yeah,
just 8 week delay to recruitment on that basis. Otherwise, they'd be 100% now. But the work that's taken place in the interim since the 10th of November is already starting to make headways into that remaining recommendation.
Any other further questions or comments to Mike? No, thanks, Mike. And, even me, picking me, I think we can probably let it run into just.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a huge amount of work. Like I
Exactly.
said, there's some legitimate constraints, and to have got this far, we're really grateful for your efforts in getting us to this point. We'll move to number 11, thematic review, broadening the role. Matt.
Thank you, Commissioners. So again, I think certainly as was mentioned just now was really interesting. We're almost moving to a phase now with what we class here as op reset is core business now. And I think we're moving to that phase while we realise we're not in a position to deliver a recommendation to at this point. And now we'll always be constrained with the outcomes of the CRMP and other things that fall out of that. So for us, there are elements of this that is moving to that core business. But obviously, what we have seen is obviously a clear increase in that operational preparedness across our crews with how we're recording the hours and what they're delivering to response. So that dedicated training hours, which again is going to be bolstered with the work that Neil is doing. And again, I think we're going to see more structure around the training when we see that published as well, which is certainly going to help on the on-call side, which is different to this. Again, then that community impact, the work that Mike has done with increasing the home fire safety checks from 12 to 15, we're able to capture that and we're able to monitor and assure that. And that there then is where the OAT team, the operation assurance team, is going to come into this as an element, because one of the questions we've obviously looked at, yes, that's being recorded, but is that actually happening on the ground? So now we're going to be moving towards assuring elements of that, assuring the training, assuring home safety checks, assuring school visits, and start working with Mike and his team to ensure that delivery is actually happening to the quality levels that we expect. It's not just a recording figure of a number. I talk in the report as well about moving to phase 2, and this is where probably my question to yourselves, commissioners, is around. This is almost business as normal now for us, and we've delivered this, and there will always be improvements to it. And our vision was always with this, was to drop the name op reset, and it becomes normal station activity as part of that. So where we are right now is in December, we have discussed this with rep bodies and supporting the rep bodies, where we are moving to the autonomy of the day will be done by the watch. So that will look different on each station. They will have their autonomy to move the blocks of times around, but they still be required to deliver against what we set as the requirements. So for example, 3.5 hours with the training, but they will have that autonomy to use that within their 4 days, as opposed to the day shifts then as part of that then. We've also as well discussed with the social partnerships around the changing of titles. So the crew commander, watch commander, station commander, and that's right up to area commander. that wasn't met with any challenge from the rep bodies as well. The piece of work we've got to do now is looking at the impact that will have on Alison's team, and all this goes towards that empowerment of leadership at the ground level. And again, that links to the work that is happening with the Leadership Academy and Neil at Cardiff Gate. So we see that intrinsically linked phase 2 to the Leadership Academy of empowering the leaders across there then. And you see what I've spoke about, you know, we're 75% complete on the introduction of the crews around the assurance. But the reality is by the end of December, that will be in place, because the operation assurance team, they're already doing an element of that anyway with station visits, but we will be conducting those no notice visits then as part of that, which will also tie into the no notice exercising, which is going to be part of that rollout then. So again, it's a standard agenda item on the social partnerships as well. So that's being discussed, continuing social partnerships and the learning coming out of it. I will say we're not having large amounts now of learning coming from it. It is pretty much at that business as usual stage now from there. Again, then, you know, I think the only thing that we will be looking at next is around the metrics in which we capture, which actually sit within the operational strategy. And again, that's the answer to that question was said, is are we capturing the right metrics? And I've done some work with Mike with that as well, because obviously we know there's a focus significantly on the SSRIs and the work that's happening right now to retrain all the crews and refocus that then. Some of the challenges we know we're having in amongst this is obviously the digital improvement, and that will happen over time. Mike's alluded to the tablets. We know that's going to improve and implement the changes for us across there. And again, when we talk about, which Brian has alluded to as well, with the systems across the service, while the systems improve and they're all integrated, that will make it a lot easier to record what we're seeing now. All our targets are on BMIS, so that the feedback is actually visible on BMIS as part of it. And the further conversation is being had now with RMT is how do we create a on-call version of Op Reset, but nowhere near to the aloneness that it probably is within WDS, but how are we capturing the activity of the on-call as part of it? So that's my stop up there.
Thank you very much, Matt. Questions to Matt?
I think it's what you raised, Matt, is what's the purpose and what's next?
Yes.
Because I still have an issue with the title of the paper, not your fault. But this is not broadening the role, is it? This is around sweating the assets to make best use of our people. That is not. And work government do not at this stage have an appetite to broaden the role, as has been very, very clear. So I think there's a question of, you know, what do we want to do and how do we make the best use of the AFA additional hours we've got? We know we need to do more training. We've done that, but what's next really? So the probably need, in my view, Chair, a conversation around the ELT, around okay, where do we want to take this piece of work going forward? Yes, the on-call is an obvious area, but even our current stuff, where do we want to, and, is it into the event agenda? Is it into something else? And what can we do within current contracts, which is not broadening the role, but sweating our people to the best advantage, in my view?
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I think there's probably the focus around the prevention and protection side when we look at SSRIs. And I think once we fully understand the capacities released from the AFAs, I think it would be a revisit of those targets around there and understanding how can we better target that with that prevention and protection, certainly around SSRIs, certainly around the home safety check, around the most vulnerable as well. And I know Mike's done a lot of work around getting that information, and we've spoken on the targeted list before, Mike, and I think that's going to be a conversation that's going to be required with the social partnerships, but it's the right thing to do. And I think that is truly exactly that, Commissioner. I mean, the paper itself, the report isn't broadening the role. It is 4 key points that's targeted around shift change and productivity. We improve the productivity right now with what we've got to where we were. It's about how we continue that journey to maximise those assets.
The issue is that we're coming up against now, isn't it, as we come towards the completion. So Grenfell, report that what the thematic is your report done, Neil just about there done, Mike the same. So the question, I guess, is a question for us to have with monitoring officer is how do we morph away from these reports on the thematic into what is business as usual, which takes me back then to where we are with an integrated performance report, because really this step now should be forming the basis of, as you said, the key metrics by which we would want to measure ourselves and demonstrate assurance around performance, either to the commissioners or for whatever comes after the commissioners. So I think, you know, we need to think about, don't we, how we transition from these types of reports into something else. So I think that's probably an action that we need to have that discussion, because by the sounds of it, the next meeting of this committee should be the last time we would ever really want to see the thematics written this way. You probably wouldn't want to do that then after that, but then you can't have a vacuum, can you? You've got to have something else to replace it with. And then the other question is then, I'm sure the station visits are great, and I'm sure there's, you know, the no notice station visits are great, but I would argue that there is a role for internal audit here, and where does our audit plan sit around providing some assurance as well? Sorry, Mike.
A part of the team that's set up is they do audit the operational station activities. So the way that it's set up to feed up to the chief, and the way that we overview is that we have 3 weekly triage meetings within the team. Then on a weekly basis, we feed up information to the head of ops, or will be to the head of ops, providing what actions need to come out from those triage meetings, and that covers incidents and sort of activities resulting in audits. Then on a monthly basis, then to the chief fire officer, it's anticipated that we give him an overview of what's happened within that period. And then when it sits up for the wider thing is these quarterly reports that are produced and documented, whether that could fit into this structure around the operational aspects and sort of our incident response. But the wider thematics around training and the Grenfell, don't know how they would fit into that.
So I think that's our internal mechanism, but what is the role of external audit as well? Now, you obviously need a bit of time for it to bed in, isn't it, before you would send your external auditors in to be able to give us, you know, what levels of assurance that these systems that you've all put in place are actually working. So I think that's
conversations have started about the best format to report that to you. And in fact, Carl and I were discussing the governance review earlier, and the fact that performance reporting is an important part of that. So absolutely, and in fact, Dominic and I were discussing that really it's a key piece of what we want to do with the deputy who's arriving very soon. Because what we don't want to do is come up with something ourselves and then sort of present it to him. So those conversations are already happening. We are looking at which metrics you need, and we need your feedback on what we present. I think they also flow out of the strategies you're about to approve later in this agenda. Because I think from each of those strategies will come, what do we want to see reported regularly?
And I'll come in after Dominic, that's okay. Yeah.
So Dominic and then Brian, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, so I'd just like to confirm that we've got an SLT ELT strategy meeting booked in on the 3rd, so just after Adam, the new deputy, starts, and we'll be looking to go over those key areas and make sure we're aligned on those. I have literally just sat with Adam and talked through those processes and the development of a performance framework and how that fits with the stuff that Amanda has just mentioned in terms of the prevention, protection, response strategies. And we've also had some conversations with Amanda's team, Wayne and Dave Canning, that have been looking at that with Stuart off the back of the initial performance framework with the numbers that we brought in previously. So I just wanted to confirm that there is progress and some work in those areas.
Thank you, Dominic. And finally,
So there's a couple of points to ask about nature. So, you know, we've got a statutory performance indicators of Welsh Government, you know, they're operationally based. So I think the question you're asking is what's the ambition of the service and how are they going to measure that beyond these reports? So some of the key performance metrics that Mike's built into the subsequent reports, they're going to come up. So that'd be a question for SLT and ELT. What's the ambition of the service over and above our statutory performance indicators that we report back to through Wayne's team, that we match with the ACFO ops, which goes beyond the sort of, I think it's 7, isn't it? Mainly operational key areas like RTCs and fire fatalities, etc. And what I would say as well on the work that Matt's done, whilst it isn't, the broadening role misses the point, really. The broadening role is to get the FA policy in place, free up capacity, we could then broaden the role into medical response, etc., etc. That's not missed by this work that Matt's done, because the way he structured it and because the FA policy, the synergies between those, that should there ever be an appetite in Welsh Government to broaden the role, we'll be ready to go. And then finally on the data, you'll be pleased to know, because it is about pulling the data together, there's a team coming in from Seattle tomorrow, not just to meet us, but to meet the police, about how they can get all our systems talking to each other, a Microsoft team. So really excited by that.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Any further points?
I know you want to close it down, but the point that I think I'm trying to make, Kirsty, and you're absolutely right, is that you've got the internal ownership,
Yes.
but that's ours.
That's ours.
How do we get that external scrutiny? So we've got Joe sat on the line, and if Welsh Government agree that HMIC are the way forward, we will get some of that external audit. If they don't, we've got our own audit contract. We need to think about how do we utilise that in a slightly different way, potentially going forward. So I think it's probably, Amanda, a longer term action until we know what the Welsh Government are going to do around the governance review. But that may then trigger, we need to do something else.
We need something else external to come in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. You said it much better. That's it. Well, that's not what I was
It put me off. I have to think about that.
That's what I was trying to say, and you've said it much better, because we can't. Oh gosh, I was going to use a very unprofessional metaphor. So we just can't mark our own homework. Is better than what I was going to say. We can't mark our own homework. We have to have some mechanisms in there that will give either commissioners or whoever follows us some external assurance around that. Gosh, right. So that's the thematics done. I think we've got some work to do about how we transition out of thematics into business as usual, which we need to take up. But we'll move to number 12 and Rhian, update on communication and engagement.
Thank you, Chair. This report is a bit of a summing up of lots of different things that have happened in the last set period. It's a little bit out of date for timing, so I'll add a few other bits just for interest while we're here, but that'll come separately. Usually for this meeting, I would take a specific topic and bring something that we've worked on, but I've been in post a year in 2 weeks' time, and I think it's just quite nice to do a bit of a foot on the ball. This is where we are, this is what we've done, this is where we're heading, which is quite nice. So we've had the strategy approved in May based on audit and feedback, comms audit and feedbacks, work streams, each with clear objectives and timescales. It's fair to say I've taken the service and the comms team on a bit of a journey through the year, building strong foundations, putting new ways of working in place and winning hearts and minds within the team and within the service for the approach that we're taking to the support that we can share for comms and engagement. That's still ongoing, and you've got to, eat an elephant one bite at a time. So you can't do everything all at once. So it's a journey through time to make sure that we showcase what we can do and work our way through bringing more and more people on board with the work that we're doing. And we prioritise the approach that we take into the comms and the campaigns that we're developing with teams. There's a range of things that we've done, including team training, masterclasses, and then quick wins across the service, as well as those longer term foundations for change. Some of the key achievements for the work streams that I'd like to share with you. It's a big piece of work to standardise our ways of working and a guide to the approach to take. So based on professional frameworks, we are advising on different ways of doing campaigns, different ways of doing internal communications, and we've got those ongoing plans to develop that handbook even further. So not just the team know how we're working, the service know how they're working and how to better engage with us and work with us and what support they can expect. On the change and engagement side, we did a load of work on the recommendations, and we've just got the policies and procedures and the recruitment outstanding with the infographics on the recommendations and updates on what we have delivered and how we are doing them. And we've taken that You Said We Did format into things like Shout, which is our colleague magazine, where we're using that information and data into an Ask for Chiefs and shining a light on the things that matter to colleagues. Excitingly, the external staff, we are working with a production company still for a taster tape for Channel 4. The update on that is we've got a trial going on in Malpas with the 4 crews there. It's going really, really well. And last week we onboarded Aberbargoed, spoke to the 4 watchers there, plus on the call team. Their cameras are now going to start there as well. And we've had some really good instances of checking and testing our processes that we've put in place. So we're comfortable that we are managing risk based on the decisions that we've made. Some great support from Amanda's team to make that happen. Some of the campaigns that we're talking about, we've got a comms campaign for the high rise team, protecting the over 65, the AFA campaign, the on-call team, training exercises, operational excellence, working with Mike's team for the community safety campaigns as well. So all of that stuff is going well. And of course we had OpBang, where I'm quite bravely commenting that the reduction in antisocial behaviour was because of the brilliant comms rather than the rain and the prevention activities. So we do an evaluation on that at the moment. So it's really nice to see the team taking a consistent approach to frameworks and campaigns and making that positive difference and supporting different people. And in fact, tonight we're presenting the on-call campaign to the IAG to get their views on could we do anything differently to get into different communities with the on-call. With the crisis comms and the resilience police, at the time of writing, the most exciting thing we had was the major incident with the Bryn Mawr wildfire. We've since had flooding in Monmouthshire. Laura activated, went to site, supported comms and had really positive feedback around the way that she coordinated the media cell and supported officers on scene with the media. We are doing a lot of work to showcase with the More Than Fire with the chief and his public affairs effort. So helping people understand that is more than just squirting water on things that are on fire. We've got that sorted with a video and supported with that rollout of the campaign that Brian led on. And I've got some questions in the field with a few members of Senedd and MPs from a public affairs point of view. Where are we in your mindset? What do you think about this? Rather than waiting for the elections, doing some work now just to get that meaningful understanding on our current perceptions and what will work for those. And we're looking for that report to come in by the end of the year, presentation to SLT with some learning and training on how do we develop and adopt our approach to that political stakeholder engagement with the elections coming up. And there's some things in there on masterclasses with the team and ongoing professional development for the team as well. And in the appendix, you've got a detailed breakdown of where we are, how things are progressing, just to give reassurance that all of the work and the work streams are progressing quite well. And most of them are ongoing because they haven't got an end date. They are things that we will keep working on through the year.
Thank you, Rhian, for that, the paper as well. Any questions, comments to Rhian?
I think it just feels different.
Completely different.
You know, the engagement with the media, you know, the confidence in staff more broadly to engage the media compared to where we were 12, 18 months ago. The internal comms, I think it is a really, really good positive step forward, really. And we talked about it earlier on, didn't we? That we try to engage the media and they're not interested. That you can take that as a negative, but actually, when you think 12 months ago, they'd be kicking the door in, wouldn't they, for the latest bit of gossip? I think you've got to take that as a positive. So, you know, well done.
Thank you, Commissioner. I was delighted when nobody wanted to cover the Chiefs 1 year in post. Which is a strange place to be, because if they were still getting that adverse commentary, they would want to put him on the spotlight.
Absolutely.
The fact that it's not a story for them is a win for them.
So, thank you, Rhian. Sorry, Dominic. So sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up with a personal thanks from me to Rhian and the team and everyone that's been working on that. I think that you are correct. There's been an awful lot of work that's gone into the back of that. And it's a really good example of, a good approach there. She took the fire standards and built a strategy from scratch, delivery plans, KPIs. It's really well rounded, and I know that there's an awful lot of work that goes into it, certainly from Rhian's side. So I just want to add my personal thanks to that as well.
Thank you, Dominic.
Thank you. It has been transformed, isn't it? In the space of the year, the function has absolutely been transformed, and just want to put on record the difference that you've made, and really appreciate it. I think when we came, so many people said, I want to turn on the TV and see positive stories about South Wales Fire and Rescue. I want to be able to go out to my community. People know that what I do for a living, and actually they want to talk to me about the positive things that they have seen, either firsthand in their community or what they've seen on media. And I think what we have seen is increasingly our ability to fulfil that ambition that our staff had. So that's really, really positive. And I was speaking to a MS who had recently visited Malpass and spoke very highly of his experience and his visit to Malpass and the positivity of the staff who said that they felt things were definitely different in the service. So sometimes they're quite a tough gig, Malpass. I know, I've been there. You know, to have that, to have that feedback that they felt that things were different in the service was really positive, and the fact that they were willing to say that to an elected representative in the area, especially one that potentially could be put in high office, is very positive. So thank you. We'll move on then to the risk reduction strategy and delivery plans, the cover report, item number 13. Mike.
Thank you, Chair. And a lot of work has gone into the strategy and the delivery plans, so you can tell by the number of pages it takes up in your pack. Almost what I want to say is there was no delivery plan before, there was no departmental strategy. And if you look at what we need to be doing as a service, which is creating that golden thread from our strategy plans for the service into departmental plans, all the way down into station plans. I think it's intrinsic that we have a departmental strategy. When I first wrote the strategy, it was really the delivery plan, but it was too much detail, too large. I think you could have got lost in the delivery plan. So what I did is almost write an overarching high-level strategy which sits above the delivery plans. The delivery plans then will detail what we're doing, but the strategy really tells you why we're doing it in a high-level way. The delivery plans also have a performance scorecard. So what we're looking at, our emphasis and our approach needs to be on outcome rather than output. But what you also need to give direction, what your expectations are. And I think Brian mentioned it earlier regarding what we currently pass over in terms of metrics to Welsh Government. So we give figures in home fire safety on number of visits, number of reflect courses, Phoenix courses. So we have those metrics, but what is really important is you expand on those metrics so that you can have output, but it needs to be linked to outcome. And the outcome is a critical part. If you do 21,000 home fire safeties, the outcome will be a reduction in accidental dwelling fires. So there is an outcome on everything that we're doing. What is really critical now is that our reporting mechanism needs to go into a board, the appropriate board, whether it's a service review board. Quarterly, we provide updates in where we are against what we said we're going to be. So I think that is the key part. The other key part of this is making sure that we land the delivery plan, the strategy in the appropriate way, which is where I link in with Rian and the comms team, that we got a really true engagement, consultation and launching mechanism that is targeted so that people are able to feedback on what we're doing, why we're doing it, and we can react to any of that feedback as well. So that's the next part of this. I don't know, it's probably good to pause there and ask for questions, because then I can, if you want to, I can say how it's outcome, not output, if needed.
Thank you, Mike.
So first of all, I am going to charge you for a new pair of bifocals because my eyes nearly on a little. But no, I think firstly, huge credit to get us to this point. I think it's really, really positive, and the three documents really do support it. I think I like the overarching and then the detail that sits underneath it. So I thought that was really positive. So a couple of queries for you or challenge. First question. Have we benchmarked against other services? Because I'd be really interested to see where we are around this one. There still seems to be a heavy reliance on CFMIS around the delivery around a lot of this, and that's a bit of a worry, I think, isn't it? So I'm not sure if it's a question, but it just feels like a real risk for us as a service around our reliance on CPMS about where we are. It really think for me leads into the need for then a performance framework scorecard that's input to the right board, Amanda. Whatever, we discussed it this morning, or whether that's commissioned, ELTS, SLT, but it does need to be. But we feels like we've got the basis of that now that needs to be lived through the right medium, really. And I still thought it was output heavy rather than outcome, but that could have been the way that I read it, because I read a lot of outputs, and that's because it's quite easy to measure, isn't it? How you transition those into outcomes more clearly, and how brave we are with some of the statements we're going to make on those outcomes, I think would be a really interesting conversation as we go forward. So, a couple of thoughts, a couple of questions.
Yeah. Benchmarking again, almost bring it back to Welsh Government expectations. So they set high expectations in relation to number of home fire safeties. So as part of the All Wales Safe and Well, so our 3 services, our benchmarking primarily is with the other Welsh Fire and Rescue Services, which we are a high achieving service in terms of that. I've gone to Liverpool to understand some of their statistics.
Yes.
And again, we have growth. And I'm sure it comes back to the earlier comment which you stated about the underutilized hours now, where we can best serve those. So I think there is growth in relation to what we can do against other services. And I understand that. I think that is why our figures are gradually increasing over those 3-year terms. So CFMS, absolutely, it is a risk for me. It is an interdependency on CFMS, particularly around the risk-based inspection program, where you can identify, although we have the risk-based inspection program, you need CFMS to support how that works and how it identifies your most at-risk premises. So we do need to bring that in as quickly as we possibly can. Performance framework, I think we were speaking with Dominic this week, or yesterday, on how we can introduce that performance framework. So there is work with Dominic on that. And the output heavy, which was your last comment, it can look that way, because I think you've got to read what each one of those actions means, and the end result of what you're doing, which is increasing your output, will ultimately have a reduction in accidental dwelling fires, deliberate fires, etc. But it's how you then in the Service Review Board show that outcome.
And just to go back on that, Mike, I wasn't actually being critical. I think it's for us to be clear how brave we want to be around where we want our outcomes to be.
Yeah.
So, if, for example, we are actively going to say we want to see a reduction in accidental dwelling fires by whatever percentage, if we want to see road deaths by whatever percentage, appreciating we are not the only partner involved in that. But I think that's that bigger question of how brave do we want to be and how clear we want to be our expectation.
So before I let Mike come back, Dominic?
Yeah, so I just wanted to support Mike then in the work that he's done. There's an awful lot of work that he's pulled together for that key area. When he says he's discussed that with me, that was actually at a alignment meeting with the Chief Fire Officer. So that had the Chief Fire Officer's scrutiny on it, and it involved all of the key leads and directors for the causes of concern. So that those actions came off the back of that. So I just wanted to add a little more detail on that point.
Thank you, Dominic. I think it's a first step, isn't it? And I think the challenge is it's evolution rather than revolution. And I think this gives us a basis on which we can move forward. I think the only thing that I would want to say is like there's a huge amount of work, and this is like the most detailed that I've ever seen this this aspect of our work since the commissioner's got it. So again, this like massive change is that I just don't want us to fall into the integrated performance report or the framework or a dashboard or whatever we're going to call it. It can't be just about ops. So obviously it can't be just about ops or it can't be just about risk reduction strategy. It has got to be about human resources, hasn't it? It's got to be about other things within the organisation. But I think this gives us a really good place to start. And the challenge will be, as you said, translating that into how we can set those expectations of what we want to achieve, and then how we will demonstrate the so what. So the only one question that I had is to understand the figures that are in here. So like the target, the baseline and the targets. I am on,
117.
yes, 115, 116, 117. So those figures that are in those tables, talk me through the rationale about why those figures, not something else.
What I wanted, I think where you got to start from is your base figures. What are you achieving? So what are you currently achieving? So I know, again, working in the departments, I can understand the capacity, the whys. So this is where it comes down to the engagement.
Yeah.
Are your figures achievable? Are they realistic? Are they hitting the Welsh Government requirements? If they are, can they grow? Do I have that capacity? So I think what is really important is understanding where we currently are, where our sickness levels are. Are we up to establishment? Are we not? And then it's about recognizing where the growth is. But it's really important that you take, I hate using the phrase, you've got to take people on that journey as well. They've got to understand what we're trying to do, which is trying to grow in certain areas. And it's about providing assurance, not only to Welsh Government, but it's assurance that your department is achieving everything you can achieve. Especially in times we don't know what's ahead in the future, and whether there's going to be cuts, etc. I'm not saying that is, but I think it's justifying our position within the community about keeping that community safe. So I think it's all those things really.
Right, thank you. Thanks, Mike. It's the piece of work to get over the line, so thank you very much. Yeah, it is a big piece of work. Any further questions on this item? No? So then we've got operational strategy.
Yeah, so if I was in next chair, Mike's alluded to a lot of the stuff that we spoke about around the metrics, which are in here, but what you see at the moment, the document is in rough form. The commissioners are happy with how we will follow the same design methodology Mike is followed within his to ensure that they align, because the reality is they do come together. Rhian is developing the communications for us, because again, it's about landing this with both our operational crews, but our partners and everybody else. So the report is set out in a short period of time as well. So look, it will look at 2024 to 2027. And the reason for that is there's a number of things we can see change in amongst that period, so such as the National Framework Document, albeit as we read it, it doesn't seem anything is not captured within our operational strategy that's not about there. I think based on the only thing I would probably like to add a little bit more to this is around probably that focus around climate change, and where we see an increase in wildfires and certainly flooding, the impact of that as well across the service area. Again, I mean, it's mindful, it's been designed on the basis of we never had one before. We never had the operational strategy. So this is about, for us, this is about building that. And what does that look like to develop operations, but what it needs to be, but also being mindful of what is happening nationally. I think we've touched on it just now, road in the wrong. Things we look at on for the fire and rescue service in the future. And ensuring that obviously that it seamlessly follows through what we've already got. So we know we're in the process of developing the CRMP. We know the station business plans and unitary authority plans, and they are going to be integral to updating the PSVs as well. But obviously, taking side then is obviously the work that Mike talks about, that prevention element. So we don't go heavy on the prevention activity within the strategy, because again, that's captured within Mike's. You've also got the on-call strategy, which really will make an appendix to this to direct people towards, or the option is obviously to blend the key points of the on-call within this document. And I think what we spend most of the time looking at now is obviously those metrics around what operations is capturing. And I think, Jay, you rightly said it can't just be about operation. It has to be about the other elements. So if you look within there, we're going to capture elements such as the establishments, especially when it comes to our on call, but right down to our average response times for the communities. Because again, these are elements that we know that are going to come up with the BioGov CRMP. And it's also taken the learning that we were given by HMIC around how we capture and record other elements, and certainly focusing on that number of SSRIs conducted. So setting, exactly like Mike said, setting those baselines of our expectations of what we want our crews to deliver. And that will flex based on capacity as we start to see that being released over time. And again, we've also included in amongst this as well is obviously the joint fire control. So including the joint fire control to our metrics to ensure that continuous improvement happens across the JFC as well as operations. So I'll stop there and obviously take any questions.
Thanks, Matt.
I think really helpful point, Matt, that again, Chair mentioned around it is about having a healthy South Wales Fire and Rescue Service, and that includes operations all over, isn't it? So as we build that formal framework, you know, we have that ethos of a healthy service. I think that's really important. One area that I didn't know if you captured and thought it was difficult was around technology. It's difficult, isn't it? Because you don't know what you don't know, but you know, as we always, electric vehicles are a really good example, aren't they? Suddenly they came up and kicked us at the cagoolies, didn't they, really? Because it was really, really hard. But what's next? So that kind of how are we going to do that forward thinking piece around what's the next tech that's coming through? You wouldn't have thought if you come out a Samsung mobile phone on an airplane, it might catch a fire, would you? But how would you kind of keep some of that around that one? But I do agree also with the environmental issues. I suppose yours is more obvious for me around there could be discussions both with the service and governance around stretch targets around some of this. Now, Mike has talked about, isn't it, around your baseline, it's really important. But we could decide that we want to stretch some of this. I'm not saying we could do. How we agree that and how we think about that, Jake, I think there's some conversation with the chief there, isn't it, really, around you can't stretch everything, can you? Because you'll stretch the organisation out of space. But some of this we might want to. It's the right thing to do for our communities.
Yeah, definitely.
With just a bit.
It's a view that we're being asked today to approve the
Yes,
document.
sorry.
So we either approve the document as it's currently drafted, or we're asking for a redraft, aren't we? So, and I should have made that clear with Mike's paper before. So actually what we're being asked to do in this meeting is adopt the strategy. So I think that we've agreed that we will adopt the strategy as it's presented under Mike's paper. Are you saying you do not want to adopt the strategy as currently drafted?
I would say Mike's paper already has those targets built in. Matt's to paper, because it is still a draft, has gaps around some of those areas.
Yeah.
So we could have that discussion. Sorry.
No, that's fine. That's clarified it for me too.
And there is another element, probably an extension to that will be, you will be dealing with the outcomes of the CRMP and fire cover.
Yes.
That will fundamentally change
Yeah.
the plan that's on paper today, and it will fundamentally change.
So we are, can I just be clear, Amanda, what we're being asked to do so that we don't do something that we then later unpick and say, well,
I think what you do is you decide today that you've noted the initial draft and that we bring it back then, because what you're saying is there are gaps that need to be addressed. You will have the outcome of various reviews that are going on, because I don't think you can approve today.
Yeah.
So you can note what you've seen and that you're pleased to note the initial draft or words to that effect, but you bring it back. I think that's the only way you can do it. You can't approve that only to change it 2 months later.
no, that's what I'm trying to avoid. Sorry, Dominic.
Yes, I might be misaligned on what I'm hearing here. I think that the draft element of it is potentially more around the design element and the structure of the making it look the same as Mike's, more of a design element than restructuring the document its entirety. And I think that we all recognise that there is going to be an evolution of these and an iteration of them following the CRMP. I think that what we're aiming for today is a sign off of the documents to provide us with a foundation and an underpinning element of those key areas so that we can start to build them into performance frameworks, and then we can start to evolve them as we gain a better understanding of our risk and we become more outcome focused. So I know that we're talking here, there's a draft, but I think potentially, and I might be wrong and Matt might correct me, but I think potentially we're saying the documents don't look artistically the same, but we will align the look of those documents, but the structure of them and the way that we've presented them will provide us with a foundation that we could potentially improve today, with a view that we are going to have to review them, but potentially not immediately. I hope that made sense.
It does make sense, but I don't think it works, Dominic, because I think by Matt's own admission, he's talked about the need to put more emphasis perhaps on climate change.
Yeah.
There are gaps in the document, so
It's just, that's the, sorry.
Performance framework.
The big zap bit for me really is, if you are happy with those metrics,
Yeah.
we would go with those metrics. But certainly I think there's a case, you know, I need to look forward, probably capture everything from climate, to almost having a section on look forward and everything that you said, Commissioner. But I think the bit for me is, if those metrics are the metrics which the commissioners are satisfied to be measured against operations for time, and there's nothing to say that, you know, we can measure more, but these are the ones for us to key focus on to show that improvement. That is the bit for me, really.
So there is a difference between the areas for measurement and what we're going to measure. So the areas for measurement, you've included in that, haven't you?
Yes.
What you haven't included for a lot of the areas is how and the numbers we're going to measure,
Yes, so that, yeah, right.
or what the aspiration is. So
So that aspiration of what.
yeah, so I don't think I'm uncomfortable with the measures. Kirsty might be different, but I am uncomfortable signing off that's got a lot of gaps around what we're aiming for.
It's the what, isn't it? The bit for me is understanding what you want to set. This is, for example, the home safety target
Could
is
just be-
straightforward.
Yeah, that could just be me. You know,
Is the issue we've got with some of it is obviously when you talk about the response ones, for example, the actual turnout times.
Yeah.
It's what we're aspiring to based on the fire cover review, probably as part of that, and that's what's going to require that to be filled in, because I can fill in all of them now. Is what we need is to agree what those baseline targets are. Some of those metrics are new.
So this is the dilemma that we've got, isn't it? So it's kind of like, in some ways, it's a bit of a timing issue, isn't it? Because very understandably, like Dominic said, we need to move forward and get on. But forgive me if I'm misunderstanding. It's really difficult, isn't it, to have an operational strategy planned out when you've got something as fundamental as the CRMP that is going to impact upon this. So I think it doesn't have to be a linear process, does it, Dominic? So we don't have to wait for the final strategy to do some of the work that you're talking about. But I think in its current state in front of us today, it goes, it's above and beyond just formatting and house style. So formatting and house style, so everything looks the same, and everything is consistent, is important. But I think what we're trying to say here is actually, at the moment, there is more work that needs to be done. So we can note the draft, we can note the direction of travel, but I guess what we're asking for is for more work to be done, not just on house style, but also on the future look and on some of the missing elements of page 33, whereas the measures are ones we're comfortable with, measures are fine. There is, as Carl said, we can't really sign off as we're being asked to approve the strategy when there are gaps in it. Is that fair?
I'm just going to throw a spanner into the works, because when I've seen strategies before, they don't go into that level of detail. And so what my ask is whether in fact what we've done is we've presented you with a combined sort of strategy and plan, if you like, which then would need those metrics, but actually your strategy, how your big buckets of activity and what you're going to do, you normally approve at this level. And maybe so I think you're right. The document you've got has got gaps in it, but whether this is the document is bigger than it needed to be might be the cause of the issue. I don't know. Well, Nick, is that fair, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, my view, it feels like a plan more than a strategy. I think it just needs a little bit more to be a little bit broader because it goes into a lot of detail there rather than it being an overall.
And it's that detail that can be refreshed
Yeah,
during the duration of the strategy. Do you see what I mean?
So it's, what this, sorry, I'm thinking hard. No, that's really helpful, because are we saying then that in the previous paper, we've got the high level stuff that has been,
Yeah.
that is the topic with pictures, very, very clear about what those big bucket items are. It is the accompanying documents that
The plan.
the plans that sit below that. So I guess is what we're saying is that's where we've got perhaps the issue. So if we've got strategy, which is high level stuff,
Yeah.
like we had previously on prevention and protection and prevention, then the delivery plans underneath, is that?
So would that, so almost as our delivery, because obviously we've got unitary authority business plans and station. Is that better suited? That element of detail on what we're targeting, is that better suited in those reports? And then the strategy is obviously that standalone rather than going into those metrics.
I suppose the issue we've now got is we don't have that standalone strategy in the papers today. We have something that's wider. And how we fix this in the short term, isn't it, is do we approve it on the basis that the planning bit of it is brought back with more detail at the next meeting? We approve it as it is with a plan to bring back to update those details, or whether you say, no, I'd rather see it separated out.
Yeah, that's it.
I suppose those are your two options, aren't they? You either approve it today and say, well, we accept the gaps today, we approve it and we refresh to fill in the gaps. Or we say, we'd like you to separate them out and bring it back.
So I can model it on the same as what Mike has done.
So Dominic.
Yeah, so I think that that's a fair reflection from Amanda. We've tried to give as much detail as possible in there because it's the first time that we've developed them essentially, but bear in mind that our performance framework is going to sit with this piece of work. So where we're looking at those gaps and those metrics that we want to improve, that will be done through the performance framework piece to support it. So you've got as much detail as we could possibly give you in those documents, but there's an iteration and next steps to develop that performance framework that will support it.
So potentially then, Chair, we could say page 231262. That is the strategy. It looks different to Mike's, so I'm blaming Mike here because he put something different on. So we've got the strategy 231262, and appreciating it needs to be Leanne-ified, we could approve that. What we would then approve is supporting performance framework that would need to come back to another meeting at a later date. But that would sign on potentially, Dominic, I think, the strategy element with the performance framework being developed.
Dominic?
So we're agreeing the measures, what we're not agreeing is the outcomes.
Yeah, if that works for Matt.
So you're taking out the operational performance delivery matrix bit of
Yeah, that would fit then.
and that could be refreshed.
So I could tie that into the authority business plans.
And I'm guessing, if I may, Chair, that the first 2 pages of each strategy will refer to the overarching strategy of the organisation. There's got to be an explicit link to those.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay. It's open to
My head hurts now. What was the simple thing?
Delete after page 260.
Strategy.
And then I think we need to amend the recommendations then, don't we?
Yes.
So Mia's been busy. I've made notes as well, Mia, so don't worry, we've got to back up a bit. So I think you're going to approve the operational strategy on pages, and we're in certain pages there in 24, 27. And then I think you can endorse the strategic direction priorities outlined in the strategy, that's fine. And then I think maybe and I think 3 is fine, maybe you add a 4, that you ask that what comes back to you at the next meeting is the performance framework paper, which will then deal with those elements that we've taken off the end.
Is everybody clear about what we are about to endorse?
Okay.
Yes, Carl?
I am, and as long as Matt is, we're all right. No one's got a highlighter out, which is always a little bit worrying.
Okay, so on the basis of the proposition that Amanda just outlined, are we happy to proceed and agree?
So you're mainly approving the operational strategy pages 231 to 262 for the period 2024 to 27. And then the other recommendations as drafted, plus bringing it back to the next meeting to deal with the performance framework aspects.
Agreed.
Great.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Super.
Thank you very much, Matt and Dominic and Amanda, for your assistance in getting us through that. That takes us to item 15 on this afternoon's agenda. That is the forward work programme. Any comments or questions about the forward work programme? Are we happy that
I think there's 2 things we need to add, don't we? So we've noted that the thematic review reports are going to be the last ones, hopefully, the last final updates.
Okay.
So I've already written down that we need to bring back to you the integrated performance framework strategy, scorecard, whatever it's going to look like. So that will be added to this. And linking in with that with any refresh needed
From Matt's from the last term.
Yeah.
So with those additions, are we happy to pass the work programme? Yes, thank you. That takes us to item 16, to consider any item of business if the chair deems urgent. I have not been informed of anything, which means, are there any items that this committee wishes to escalate to the Board of Commissioners for discussion? I don't think on the discussions we've had today, there is anything that needs to be escalated. So if there's no further questions or comments, I declare the meeting closed and thank everybody for their attendance and efforts, producing the papers for the meeting, presenting and for participating today. And that concludes this afternoon's meeting. Thank you very much, John. Wow.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Dominic.
Dominic, can you stay on the line? Brian and I need to chat.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've just added that